Hi everyone, I hope this video finds you well. Today we're going to be taking a look at Lesson 7, Immunity and Vaccines. Our agenda for the day is going to be the following. So we're first going to check our answers to yesterday's or to Friday's HIV and AIDS handout that is going to be attached right here so you can take a look at the key. Number 2, we're going to fill in our notes for Lesson 7 using the teacher PowerPoint slide that's linked below and this video. So nice job if you're tuned into this video. Number 3, you're going to be taking a look at the handout, How Vaccines Work, and completing the questions that are in this handout. So you're going to be using the link that's within this Google document to answer those questions once you are done with the notes for today's lesson. So let's jump right on in. Today we're going to be talking about passive versus active immunity and vaccines. And we've been talking a lot about antibodies and antigens throughout a lot of these lessons. And today we're going to be talking even more about how antibodies and antigens help our immune system or play a role in the body's immune system and how it fights off pathogens that could enter the body. So let's take a look, this nice flow chart we have here. What's going on? So we know we have immunity, and immunity itself can be split up into two categories. So we have innate immunity and acquired immunity. So innate, you can think of, it's already inborn genetic factors, it's already there in the person's body. But acquired immunity can be split up into two different sections, and that is active versus passive immunity. So today we're going to be taking a look at the difference between this active and passive immunity and what's going on between the two. So active immunity is immunity due to the production of antibodies by the organism itself. So if you were the organism, you would be making your own antibodies after the immune response has been stimulated by a pathogen. So you can think how I remember active versus passive. Active immunity, you can think that your body is immediately acting. You are making your own antibodies right away. So some examples of active immunity include natural exposure to the infectious agent. So let's say you had chickenpox before, your body's going to make antibodies against that infection, and you won't get it again because your antibodies would now be prepared. Let's say the pathogen did come back into your body. And another example would be artificial immunization, which would be a vaccine presenting a weakened infection into the body or introducing the antigen into the body, and your body would be making its own antibodies against that infection. We also have passive immunity. So let's take a look at what exactly passive immunity means now. So passive, I think of it as now there's ready-made antibodies being injected into the body. So you're not immediately making your own antibodies. Antibodies are being given to you to then stimulate antibodies of your own. So passive immunity is the acquisition or the acquiring of or getting antibodies from another organism in which active immunity has been stimulated. So active immunity will be stimulated. This includes artificial sources via the placenta, colostrum, direct injection of antibodies. So again, we have a couple of different examples for passive immunity, and they include natural maternal antibodies, and an example of this would be colostrum. And colostrum is the first secretion from the mammary glands after giving birth, and it's rich in antibodies. And we also have artificial ways of getting passive immunity, which would be antibodies from other sources. So an example is a rabies treatment would be an artificial way of getting passive immunity. So in your student notes, you have two columns here. You have passive immunity and active immunity. So I want you in your notes to now write the definitions of the two. So again, passive immunity is the acquisition of antibodies from another organism. So you're acquiring antibodies, which will then stimulate your own active immunity of making the antibodies. Whereas in active, you can think your body is immediately acting. Active immunity is immunity due to the production of antibodies by the organism itself. So let's say an antigen was given to you through a vaccine, or if a weakened virus was given to you through a vaccine, your body would be immediately making its own antibodies after an immune response. So let's take a look at some examples of passive versus active immunity again. So again, passive immunity is due to the acquisition of antibodies from, let's say, the mother via the placenta, via milk. Also, antibodies can be received by injections. So those are just a couple examples that you can put in your T-chart here. And then going into active immunity, again, you're actively making your antibodies. So active immunity is due to the production of antibodies by the organism itself after the body's defense has been exposed to the antigen. So with this one, you can think of the immune response of having the T cell stimulate the B cell to make antibodies and then become plasma cells and memory cells to help you remember that pathogen. Let's say if it happens to invade your body again, or if it invades the body, you would have already made antibodies against it. So let's now take a look at these different examples. I want you to pause the video and see if you can state whether these are active versus passive immunity and if they are natural or artificial. So pause the video and take a look. Okay, hopefully you've paused the video and tried it by yourself. Let's take a look at each of these examples and see whether we can distinguish between passive or active. Let's take a look at the first one. Antigen enters the body and the body produces antibodies. If the body produces antibodies, we know that it is active immunity. You are immediately acting and making your own antibodies from the start, and that would be naturally acquired because the antigen is just coming into your body. Now let's take a look at the second one. Antibodies pass from mother to fetus during pregnancy. So now the antibodies themselves are being passed, which will then stimulate active, but presenting antibodies would be passive immunity. And as we can see here, it's going from the mother to fetus, so that is naturally acquired. Let's take a look at our next one. We have weakened or dead fragments of a microbe are injected into the body. So we have, like, you can think the antigen is being injected into the body, and the body is going to produce antibodies. Whenever the body produces antibodies by itself immediately, you have active immunity, but that is going to be artificially acquired because it would be something like a vaccine. And the last one, antibodies in a serum are introduced to the body. Again, if antibodies are going to be introduced to the body, that is going to be passive immunity. And here we would have it as artificially acquired because if the antibodies are in a serum, it's not naturally being given to you, let's say from the mother to the fetus. So hopefully that all makes sense.